the Enterprise Digital Podcast with Ian and Barclay Ray, navigating the ever-expanding service management maze.
Hello, welcome to the Enterprise Digital Podcast once more. I'm Barclay Ray, I think, and usually I'm joined by Ian Aitchison. Ian, you are there. We can see each other now. That's well, you can see us, which is not great for them. But how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, very good. Looking forward to Christmas.
Are you? Okay. Well, yeah. Somebody is. That's good. This is episode 103,005. Usually at this point, we did talk about trivia, and I'm glad about that because I'm not really feeling very serious today or sensible. Do you have some trivia to suggest to our listener?
I do. Yeah, I do. Here. I do. Just interesting as ever, interesting things that drift by. And this week, the interesting thing that drifted past me was fungus, actually. So have you heard of radiosynthesis? Probably not.
Is it similar to photosynthesis, or is it an audio version of that?
Yeah, no, it really is. So fascinating. I mean, this story's been running for many years, but recently there's been some noise about it in the media, which is, you may remember the terrible disaster that happened at Chernobyl back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. Luckily, the world was saved. Terrible near radiation disaster, but even so, pretty bad things happened. Great series on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it's very good. Unit 4 at Chernobyl, the reactor there, which has a great deal of ionizing radiation still being emitted, and ionizing radiation is very bad for us. Very, very bad. Unless you have cancer, it's quite good at defeating cancer, but other than that, it's generally not a good thing. Well, they've discovered in Unit 4 at Chernobyl a particular type of black fungus, velvety black fungus, which appears to be flourishing basking in the radiation. The radiation is apparently being absorbed by this black fungus, and it appears is being treated like treated a bit like plants and photosynthesis, right? So plants photosynthesize by taking light and effectively turning it into energy for them to live, and it is this fungus is doing this. They call it radiosynthesis. It's not been fully confirmed, but what they have done, and this is why I love this, they've taken this fungus up into space, Barclay, and they've tested that it does absorb cosmic radiation when placed outside the International Space Station. Consequently, they think, in theory, if this fungus is radiosynthesizing, they can cover the outside of spaceships with this fungus, and it will protect the humans as they travel to, for example, Mars. Well, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, so that's the sci-fi stuff that we've had for years about shields and things like that, and that's effectively
living shield, feeding off cosmic radiation, which keeps it alive but protects those inside. A wonderful story.
It is, actually. It is fascinating. I have a Chernobyl story. I was nuked by Chernobyl.
That explains a lot.
Almost my second head. Yes. I was working in Oslo at the time. It was April 1985. Sorry, no, 86. Anyway, it was sometime in the, and I was working in slightly. No, I wasn't doing those. I was playing music in nightclubs. So I went out late, and a group of us that were working, we would go and walk out to this particular place about midnight. That 1 o'clock in the morning, play till 5, 6 in the morning, and the good old days. Anyway, we went out this particular night, and we were thinking, is it raining? It's so very weird. And it was if you know the Peter Gabriel song about red rain and so on. It did have that kind of slightly it was sort of like dust, and it was kind of orangey red, and you're kind of going, oh, what is that? I don't know. Now we didn't have phones and smartphones that told us what was happening on the other side of the world instantly. we had no idea what was going on. We went to the nightclub, we played, went back, and so on. Next day, I was sitting in the main square in Oslo. I'd bought the English newspaper, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh my God, because in front of it was saying this is what had happened, and I had a picture of it with the plume, like it was right over Norway, where I was sitting. So and then somebody said, oh, you need iodine. I have no idea what to do with iodine, but I, went to try and go to a chemist store. Every single chemist was immediately out of iodine. So I've never found out. I mean, that was 40 years ago, I suppose.
It's the really terrifying moment, though, when you realize there was a big wave of radiation passing over. You'd be exposed to it.
Yeah, and there was 5, 6 of us. One of the guys about 3 or 4 years ago, unfortunately, did die quite suddenly of cancer. But he could have been anything. He smoked.
Oh no.
He drank. I don't know. But anyway, we had this thing of like going, oh, that's what the red rain was the nuclear fallout from Chernobyl, and we were right in the middle of it when it came down. So that's my Chernobyl story.
Yeah, amazing.
Done with it.
Yeah.
Done
Yes.
fungus around. Anyway, we don't have fungus. So we do have a guest today, except that they just haven't appeared. So unless they're hiding behind you or behind me, it's no. We scheduled this session. It was isn't coming on. That's fine. We'll see them again sometime soon. But we are going to talk about really interesting stuff, aren't we? We're going to what's happening in the exciting and ever expanding world of service management.
So what's been going on in the world this week, Barclay? What's our main topic? What's your thoughts and observations on the industry?
I mean, one thing I was just thinking there is that there's a kind of 2 levels of it at the moment. There's people I know that are, that maybe place people or recruitment, or it's quite hard to get, sort of long-term stuff. I think, are looking for jobs, and that there are maybe jobs out there, but I do hear that some of the market has dropped a bit in terms of bringing in long-term contractors, for example, or, finding people for roles. I think there's still a bit of hesitancy about that. Vibrant at the other end of the market, I guess where we operate, which is, we do short-term strategic stuff. There's lots of projects, there's lots of stuff actually going ahead, and people are to buy new tools, and that market just keeps on spinning round and round. I don't know how it keeps going. There's so many, the ITSM tooling market just keeps on going, and it's amazing how it does it.
Yeah. Surprisingly vibrant and active, and you'd think after all this time that market would be reaching the plateau of stagnation almost, with one dominant vendor that owns the whole market, and with a sort of defined and unchanging environment. But actually, I see this too, that lots of organizations are very, very active and busy. Part of it might be, do you think that there is always a change of leadership, and a change of leadership always brings new initiatives, and often that involves hiring new people or changing the strategy or replacing the technology?
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, yes, I think there's less of just diving into the tool stuff than there was. I mean, I'm just thinking of a project where that's completely not the case. They have dived into the project madly in advance, but in general, I think people are more ready to listen to some of the the feedback on the ideas about sorting things out first, getting the right people, getting the right structures and processes, and the readiness part, not just going, right, we're going to buy a tool and we'll spin it up and we'll and then we'll throw it away in a year and do the same, and keep repeating. It's difficult to gauge, but the fact is that market just keeps going, and the replacement side of it is I suppose, the main part of it, because otherwise 90% of the vendors would be gone by now. But so many of them are still around that we've been around for a long time and don't look if they're. Every so often you hear people going, "Oh yeah, well it's going to hit the fan out. We're going to lose half these, or they're all going to get bought," and it just doesn't happen. And that does amaze me sometimes, because I think, how many ITSM solutions do we need? Yeah. Do we need more new?
We were talking with Keith Anders from Easy Vista on a recent podcast, a little bit around this, weren't we? Around how SMB, small medium business organizations, need particular types of solution, and how larger organizations need a potentially much more complex or more configurable tool to help them do what they need to do. So there is no one tool to serve the whole market. There's multiple tools that serve different organization sizes and different levels of, we use the phrase maturity, right? Where to indicate there is no perfect goal, but some organizations have very high ambitions in their practices and the way they work and the way they use the technology. Other organizations, their ambitions might not be as complex, but they can be extremely good at what they do. So an organization that just uses their tooling for incident and request management and a simple CMDB can be really, really, really good at just that. Or a very large organization that does complex availability and capacity and continuity and all of these advanced, very mature activities can either be very good or indeed very bad at those things. And the tools that are available suit different organization profiles. It doesn't matter really about the tools if the organization doesn't have the processes and the people in place. Is that what you've been seeing, that you've got to have those basics first?
Yeah, I mean, I hung up about processes. I mean, I remember I had this discussion or with one of the sort of guys from one of the implementers a year or two back. We said, "Oh yeah, you're the process guy, aren't you? You do that." And it was a little bit kind of, yeah, we do the real stuff, and you come in and talk to them about processes. That we give them processes anyway. I said, "No, I'm not the process guy. I'm process probably for 20 years. I've reviewed lots of them and I've given people suggestions, but that's not it's not just process. Process primarily is what they get from the tools if they actually bother to use them properly. It's governance, it's approach, and it's understanding of the requirement is the key thing. I mean, I do keep having this with a lot of client, when I suppose the other end of it is that they seem to be quite happy with relatively unintelligible masses of data that are produced out of these tools, rather than good data analytic, simple business type outputs. And I'm like, well, that's only of interest to you. That's not going to be an interest to anybody else. So how are you going to make something out of this? How are you going to interpret it? What's the real value that you're looking for? What's the real value that's being delivered? And from the tooling point of view, does that justify the cost of it? And you do quite often get a lot of blanks there. So again, I'm getting more people going, yeah, we need to get better at that. We need to get better at how we communicate within technology, because all the stuff that we do is great and we understand it. Blank stares or, eye rolls when we start talking about that to other people. And I think that's the bit that's really got to change. That's the bit that's, the bit, certainly from my point of view, is what I spend most of my time talking about is, okay, present me with a lot of information, but don't expect me to understand it or analyze it. And I've only got 2 minutes. So, you've only got one chance to sort of win, if you're going to get investment from your board level people, don't just flood them with lots of data and expect them to work out why they need a new tool or investment. You've got to present it very clearly. And that's the gap, I think, still is there's that gap between business behavior, business knowledge and understanding, and what we might do quite well within technology. We have to find some way of bridging that with language and good reporting, good analysis, and good conversations that don't dissolve down into jargon and technology only.
Too much data. I mean, too much data can be a real problem. You're right. The tools now are capturing so much information that it's easy to get drawn into infinite levels of analysis, infinite levels of complexity looking at data. And we forget sometimes that the experience and the instinct of people often is a really, really good indicator of what needs to be done. If somebody says you have a real problem with responsiveness to a particular type of event or incident that's coming in, yes, we could spend 2 weeks capturing every data point to produce 200 different graphs, or we could say, yep, we trust you, we know you have the wisdom, we understand that. Data, in product management, there's a thing where you work around hypotheses, right? You have a hypothesis. Hypothesis is we have a problem over here that needs to be fixed. A hypothesis that there would be value if we did this. And you use the data to prove or disprove your hypothesis. And that, I think this is really an interesting thing, because the data is just there as the backup evidence that says, yep, we know this hypothesis is good because we measured it and it looks like it is. So our gut feel was right. But there's another model, which is where you say, yeah, I had a hypothesis and we've measured it, and my gut feel, my hypothesis is wrong because we measured it and it's not true. And that's just as valuable as being right, because a lot of the work that goes on is about, if you can disprove something, you don't have to spend time, you don't have to invest effort into that area. I have a gut feel we've got a problem over here with how quickly we're answering Teams audio calls. Turns out, no, we don't. Great. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do it. That's really good news. We don't have a problem there. We've just proven there is no problem. That's really positive. So I'm not quite sure where this is going. This is something about, you don't need tons of data, but you use your data as a little ruler to prove or disprove your hypotheses.
Yeah, I mean, the way you're using hypothesis, I probably refer to it more from the kind of work I spend a lot of time doing, which is quickly at analyzing a situation and giving people guidance back. And so I use indicators rather than a lot of data. And gut feel is an indicator, is what, as you walk into a place and you get a feel for the people and the way even the way they engage with you before the job, that, well, they don't seem very organized. Or you ask them 2 things and they only answer 1 back in the email and expect you not to so you have to keep going back, and that gives indicators. But that's not enough. You need data behind that. So on the hypothesis side, very often I'm then looking at what my gut feel or what my initial thoughts are and using the data to back that up in the way that you're using hypothesis. Looking from the other side, which is trying to think how to get technical people to think differently about how they present information. I think that's the biggest challenge. It's the one that I'm the broken record on most of the time.
And there's some time in the past, haven't we, that challenge how to communicate succinctly. And this applies across all business, really. I mean, it could be outside of our world. It's still the same. Your ability to have that elevator conversation with the boss, or to go into that board meeting with the 3 slides, not the 300 slides, with the 5 points, not the 500 charts. Boiling it down to just, and if they trust you and your experience, they don't need any more. You don't need to provide infinite quantities of evidence.
It is. I mean, you mentioned the right word there, trust, and confidence, I think, is the other one of the people doing that. And I think when you see people in transition from being operational, transactional, thinking about data and technology, to analytical, being able to make decisions and strategic, it's how they go from one to the other. It's good that you understand the detail, of course, but you've got to then be confident enough to just present enough rather than, it's a lack of confidence. I think if I ask somebody for some information and they give me a pile of data and they're then it's a bit annoying because they're then expecting me to do the analysis that I have asked them to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a confidence thing of going, these are I know what the important things are, and they are these 2 or 3 things, and here's the information. And that's still a real challenge, I think. And I don't know whether that's something that we're going to see a solution from AI on, particularly.
That's exactly going to be my point. I have absolutely seen AI being used extremely well to solve that problem. I've seen people who have regular senior management briefings on difficult topics where they were producing way too much information, and they're all guided to, before you come to the meeting, run it through Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever, run it through and simplify it down to an executive summary. And that helps them learn how to do it because they understand, okay, I don't need 10 paragraphs, I need 5 bullet points. But it also means that meeting's much more effective. So I know we diss AI quite often, but I've seen that today work well for people to help them get that right.
I mean, I think that's the machinery of it, but the confidence, I think, still requires you to understand the topic.
Yeah.
Because the AI might not be right. You might come back and go, well, actually, no, these aren't the most important things. I still see it in quite a transactional way in terms of it just helping you to move a process forward rather than solve it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be lots of people out there going, no, it can do all that for you, and you need to waken up. And
you still have to know your topic to have confidence to say, the answer is yes. I don't need to show you all this information. You have to know your topic to have that confidence. You can't just say the answer is yes because AI said yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Gone to AI and said, look, here's all my information and I can't boil it down. I've got so much. Help me boil it down. And it comes, right, say this. And of course you look at it and you say, yeah, I do understand my topic. These are good things. I won't say it like that, change that. And that's just wrong. So I won't say that. But this helped me simplify that conversation and get what I needed at the right level. Because communicating at a senior level is really, it's a skill. It's an art.
It is, and it's not often done terribly well, I have to say. And it is very much a sign when you see people developing that they get that, and it's quite interesting seeing them moving through. And I'm very much the Grim Reaper who helps to do that. I can get quite snarky about, well, why have you or what information are you putting in front of me? I've asked a simple question and you give me all this stuff. So please consider it again. Go away and get the scissors out. Just chop it all down.
So
it's more effective.
What are we saying then? What's the conclusion of this rambling discussion? Too much information is a bad thing. There's an art to communicating to the right people.
Yeah, and that old expression of I haven't had time to be concise is really, that's where AI probably does give you time to be concise, doesn't it? It does have to do that, but you can't just rely entirely on it. You've got to know what you're talking about as well. But the key thing is that actually being concise isn't just nice; it's more effective.
Very good. That's everything.
It's almost like we just made that up as we went along. But no, we really planned that podcast out, didn't we? I'm going to do my Matt Berning impersonation. I've been dying to do it for a while, and
let's finish with a Matt Berning impersonation.
Right. Hello, Matt. Love you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, at the moment, and it always makes me smile. So, yeah, we've managed to make a podcast out of few scraps of cheese and some fungi. So that's a good thing.
I'm indeed a fungi to be with.
Yeah. And so we'll hopefully, maybe our guests will turn up soon and we can record another session on this, but we'll see you sometime soon on the Enterprise Digital Podcast. Thank you.